Hey everybody, it's Peter, and I thought I'd do a quickie review on a movie I saw the other day on Wednesday called Thank You for Your Service. And I went to go see this one. I'm actually, quick history, I'm ex-military. I call myself a Cold War vet. I made the joke up when I used to play or still sometimes play World of Tanks, because I used to be in the Armor Corps with the Canadians. I was with the 8th Canadian Hussars, I was with the Royal Canadian Dragoons, and then while I was over in Germany, I switched back because we were rotating the regiments around. I went back to being a Hussar again. So I was in from 83 to 90. I do have some friends that went a little bit further. They went to Bosnia, Afghanistan, all that fun stuff. And this movie is actually basically about the American involvement during the Iraq War. I believe it takes place in 2007. And the story is basically about three of the guys coming back, played by Miles Teller, plays Schumann, Joe Cole, he plays Billy Waller, Beulah Cole, but his is spelled Koale. He plays a fellow named Solo. The movie actually starts off with a bit of a firefight going on. The guys are going along minding their own business. We already see them on top of a roof. The story actually it's a kind of a little bit like Memento with the way the flashbacks go, because we sort of see the movie just starts off with, I'm not going to give away too much. I don't want to spoil it too much, because if you're interested in soldiers going through PTSD and having to go through the VA system, that kind of thing, this is a really good movie. First real quick thought is it's a powerful movie without being overpowering. That's my fault. There was a lot of it I'm just like, wow. Even kind of maybe almost shed a tear a couple of times because some of it was like really strong. And what these guys they're enduring worse crap than they are when they were over there, which was kind of sad. It's the way to see the system goes. And basically, so we're starting off with, I'm just going to give you the opening. It's not going to really spoil too much, but we're starting off the movie. They're on a rooftop somewhere. We find out later on what had happened was the Humvee patrol got hit by an IDE, so they had to get out and basically scramble, go to higher ground, hence the rooftop shots. And one of the guys, a fellow we find out later by the character name of Emery, he's played by Scott Hayes. So we kind of switch around too, because I thought originally the guy who got shot, and they sort of joke, well, he was the tallest guy on the rooftop, and they were trying to duck down as best they could, but he got hit by a sniper round. You thought maybe he's gone, but he's not. And Miles Teller picks him up, gets him down the stairs as quick as he can, accidentally trips and falls down, and that's sort of part of the theme too, that he dropped him. And then we cut to the guys actually on a plane, so we've got now Teller's character and the two Coles, Solo, Waller. Miles Teller plays a character named Schumann, who's like one of their sergeants. And they're basically on their trip back from the tour, and the story actually starts from there. So we got to see, okay, they were in some shit. What happened? Now we're back on the plane coming home from their tour, and they're talking about what's going to happen. Waller's just like, oh yeah, I'm going to marry my fiance, and it's going to be a wild and wonderful life. Solo is like, yeah, he's got a girlfriend waiting for him back home. We're going to go from there. And you find out later, when they land, you don't hear it until you land, that Schumann actually has a family. He's got a young daughter, and he has a young boy, maybe not even a year old, and he's got his wife, and his wife is played by Haley Bennett. Just a quick note too, all the acting is really good in this, and it touches, we've seen this before, when you see the Hurt Locker. You don't really touch on the PTSD part, but at the end of Hurt Locker, when Jeremy Renner goes back home, he's trying to cope and with his wife and his kid, and he's more happy when he's out in the field than he is back home. He can't seem to cope with civilian life. Oh yeah, American Sniper. American Sniper I felt was a little too Hollywood, but this movie basically focuses not on the war, but about, I guess you could say, the war back home, of trying to cope, trying to deal with your feelings. The only people that understand are your other buddies. And eventually some of the characters, have to go through the VA system, Veteran Affairs, to try to get some help. And they find it like, no, fine, we'll find work, we'll find a job, we'll do something. We'll try to cope, we'll try to make the best of it. And each one of the guys is suffering. Waller suffers. Again, not much of a spoiler, but he's come home and to an empty house. just some of his stuff is left there. I've heard stories like this when I was in the Army of guys going on long exercise, or here sometimes the Navy guys, they're out for months at a time, come home, empty apartment, it's all packed up. So, it's difficult to have a family life when you're not there half the time, or if your commitment, especially with these guys, they got to go for about a year, I believe, to go somewhere, and then your loved one has to wait for you all this time. And are they going to stand strong and wait for you, or are they going to say like, yeah, I can't handle this, I need somebody near me or around me, you're gone too long, we got kids to raise, the kids are going like, where's daddy? It was another case, where's mommy? But this is basically focusing on three of our guys. And we touched base on some of the other guys, like the guy who got shot. Slight spoiler, we do find out, hey, he did survive. He's living in a cabin somewhere in Arkansas. And later on, Teller goes to talk to him because he's trying to, figure things out. So Teller's character is just whatever he can do. He's like, yeah, I'll find work, honey, don't you worry. And the other fellow, Solo, who's actually, his character is Samoan. And that comes up later in the movie too, when they're all trying to find help and like the VA's not helping them. So I figured, oh, you're not eligible for benefits because there's no record of some of your engagements. So he has to go to one of his officers, this one captain, and the guy was more worried about ordering steaks online than he was about taking care of his guy. And it's just like, don't you worry about it. He checked out his paperwork and his records, like, wait a minute, you're Samoan? Samoans aren't Americans. Well, after basic training, Solo says that he swore in before he deployed, so he's now officially American citizen before he went over there to fight. And we touch a little bit on the other guy. Like I said, Waller comes home, everything's gone, and he doesn't know how to deal. He confronts his wife, and it goes from there. Most of the movie is around Miles Teller's character, Schumann, of what he does, and he's also trying to help out his buddy Solo. Solo is really trying to struggle with this. Solo's main problem is, I think, I don't know if it's because too many engagements or maybe too many times near IED explosions actually caused brain damage for him. So he's getting all these memory lapses. He can't remember everything. He's actually talking to one of the agents at the VA when they finally make enough stink to say like, hey, we're here all this time, we gotta wait. And the one guy tells them, oh yeah, it'll take you a few weeks just to get recognized and put on the list, and it's still going to take 6 to 9 months to even see somebody in the office to help you out. So, Teller just loses it, and then somebody in the back says, yeah, I'm off my lunch, I'll talk to him. And Teller tells the Solo character, yeah, you go in, you need it more than I do. Some of these people are caring in the office, but when you look at this, it's like when you hear jokes about the DMV, you hear all sorts of stories about massive lineups and dealing with government workers who are like, nah. And that's what these guys are trying to help, these soldiers as best they can, but it's typical government system. They may or may not get help. We don't know what's going to happen. And what I found was the wow factor of this movie is just sort of like, even though the guys aren't showing emotion, there is such hidden emotion behind all this because of what the guys have to go through and endure, and they're trying to cope. And even Teller's character Schumann, he thinks he's okay, but yeah, that's amazing what these guys have to endure. When you see some of the questions they have to do to try to get the benefits and support, do you have suicidal tendencies? How do you feel about this? Are you seeing or thinking or hearing things? And they're just trying to pull out of this stuff too. And the other sort of sad thing of the story is Schumann doesn't tell his wife, and his wife is like, well, you've been over there so many times already. I forget how many, I think it was maybe his third deployment this time around. And she's like, just tell me. But of course, like Bradley Cooper in American Sniper, he's just like, no, I'm fine. Don't worry about it. I'm okay. And I don't know if it's a male macho thing that they just don't want to say like what's wrong, or figure maybe my wife's not going to get it. She's never been over there kind of thing. Like some people, I can understand that. Like I've never been over anywhere. I haven't been in it. Like I said, I did the Cold War, but it's sort of apples and oranges too. But I did a call center for 11 years, and I sort of joke I got a bit of shell shock. You can get, mild form of PTSD, repetitive stress disorder, burnout, whatever you want to call it. So, and I sort of joke I get jumpy when the phone rings now. I can see too guys getting jumpy when things are going in, and that's also touched on the movie too. Certain sounds was also happened in another good movie about guys coming back from the war. Billy Lynn's Long Halftime Walk, which is basically a guy too came back from the war, lost his sergeant played by Vin Diesel, and that too trying to cope. And when loud noises go off for certain things, or they're supposed to be at a football game, standing, and so people can say hi and wave to them. And there's fireworks going off around them, and these guys are like almost like trying to keep their shit together while all these things like boom, 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 and almost like again having flashbacks to being in the thick of it, while they're on display for everybody to say, "Oh, look, it's our heroes." They're called the Bravo Squad. There's a thing too, and everybody's calling them heroes and stuff like that. And these guys like, you know what? I just went out, I did the job, and I had to do something maybe I didn't like, I wasn't happy with. In Billy Lynn's case, he actually killed somebody, while he was saving a sergeant. And it's touched on as well too in Thank You for Your Service. Stuff went down. They lost a few guys. Interesting point too. Amy Schumer was in this too, and I didn't even know it was her. I didn't realize it was her until later on when Miles Teller goes to the house and actually has to talk to her about when he's trying to deal with his trauma and work through it. And he eventually goes up to her and says, "Yeah, I know what happened to your husband, but when they first met, when he first got off the plane," she said, "Oh, did you hear what happened to him? Do you know what's going on?" He's like, I wasn't there." And when you find out later what had actually happened, he couldn't tell her what had actually happened because, again, you find it later on. But part of his healing process he eventually did before he actually went to a place out in California that actually helps, broken soldiers and people with disorders. And I guess he didn't want to say because of the circumstances. I guess he feels totally guilty. It was sort of, I'll just give you a bit of a hint. After the incident with Emery getting his head shot, you find out he actually survived. Well, the fellow in question, I think it was Dotmer was the name of the sergeant, and he said, "You know what, Schumann, you take the day off. I'm going to take shotgun on your vehicle, and you take a break for today, call home, that kind of thing." And because of that, then we find out what happens with Dotmer. But because of the circumstance, and I can see that you don't want to say, "Oh, by the way, this is what happened to your husband because of these circumstances." So we find all this. So it's interesting how, like, most of the movie is in the present, but every once in a while it cuts back to actually what happened to some of the guys. And you figure, like, oh, we lost somebody. Like, nope, no one guy survived. The other one didn't quite make it. So it's all this, it's like I said, it's like Memento. It's sort of like back and forth the way the story goes. I was just surprised. Like, this is a really good movie. I don't know if vets will go see this and say, like, hey, that's what really happened. This is what we're going through. And it's not sort of like you got to feel sorry for it. I actually did feel sorry for these guys for simple factors of the paperwork they got to go through to find out, what happened, what's going on. I've actually had my own brethren of Canadians who sometimes they pop up on Facebook and say, "Yeah, I tried to do something the other day," or try to get help from our version of the VA. I think we also call it Veteran Affairs. And some of the things you have to go through. And people say, "Well, you didn't have to go and do that." Well, some people want to serve their country and fight the big fight or fight for a cause or whatever, that kind of thing. There's nothing wrong with that. But what they have to endure, and there was actually a line when they're sitting in the VA office that Schumann actually says, "Yeah, I could get PTSD just sitting here waiting for our turn in line." There's even a line like how bad the system is when Schumann finally gets to go see a coordinator, they're saying, there's a waiting list, just getting on the waiting list, and there's like hundreds of thousands of people. And his wife goes like, "Yeah, but my husband's a veteran and he should have, they thought they were just talking about hundreds of thousands of people with mental issues that are just eventually like, no, there are hundreds of thousands of military personnel that have issues that are lining up to go to a facility to get help," which is sad. And then you wonder why every once in a while in the news you hear about suicides and people not coping. And at least everybody's going like, "Hey, you're a hero." And that was another thing too. And I know a lot of soldiers like that. When they were talking to the Schumans, were talking to the I'll say she's a coordinator for the office, and she was reading his record, and I got a commendation for this, and he got an award for that, and he got a medal for this, and she's just like, "Well, you never told me." A lot of these guys too, and I saw that was a line even in Band of Brothers, where it's just like, Grandpa, were you a hero? Says, no, no, but I worked with a bunch of heroes. They don't think of themselves as brave hero types. It's just like, you know what? I had a job. I had to go do something, and I did it. And I don't think they're coming back, say, yeah, you know what I did? I want a medal. I want this. But they do want help. They want to be taken care of as best they can, like not just babysat, but you know what I'm saying? You got problems, you got issues. You need some kind of help. Not everybody can survive all this, and especially some of the guys these go through the trauma and everything else is just like bloody ridiculous. Like when my doctor said I have a mild form of PTSD, I don't call it that because I do have my buddies who actually went through some of this. And sometimes when they pop up on Facebook, or I don't, dredge it up with them, but I can hear the way they're talking about stuff. We're actually one of the guys I've never met. He's a buddy of mine on Facebook. He's a really cool. He was an officer back in the day, and he got in so far and he got out. He got as far as Bosnia, and got out. And now he's in the banking business. But him too. He a few times too. Hey, you guys got any problems? Here's my phone number. I don't care what time of the day it is. You give me a call. We'll work this thing out. So it's nice to see stuff like that. So yeah, that was what I took away from this. Is the shit these guys went through over there, and then the shit they go through when they come home. I forgot to mention, this is based on a book. And at the end of the movie, you actually see that some of the characters that we see, like Emery, Schumann, Solo, they're all alive and well. They're doing fine. They got their treatments, and you get to see the pictures of the actual people that the actors played. So, yeah, this is a really good movie. I just told somebody today when I was out for my coffee run, and I said, yeah, you want to go see a good movie? Go see that movie. To me, this year for good movies was Baby Driver. Still going through the listening right now to Bill Pope and Edgar Wright doing their commentary on the movie. And so to me, that was a really good movie for the year. Victoria and Abdul, for anybody who likes British history and you don't mind watching really old British actors talking about life and times in the British monarchy and how crazy views are of the day or something. But that was an enjoyable movie. I laughed. That was also, to me, that was more of a fairy tale. That movie also started off, it was based on a book mostly, but that was an enjoyable movie. I actually laughed, and this is the third best movie I've seen this year so far. If you have seen it already, tell me your thoughts. What do you think about it? Do you think it was a really good movie? Right now, I think it's in the high to mid 70s on Rotten Tomatoes for both critics and viewers. So I would say go see this one. But if you want to see something serious and impactful and will make you think about things, go see Thank You for Your Service. And to those out there who have done their time and ever there, thank you as well. Everybody have a good night.